All right, let's find a nice comfy seat. Let your spine get nice and tall. Feel your way into a breath that allows some ease. Find your way into the physicality of a shape that allows the vertebrae themselves to stack effortlessly. Maybe let your eyes close. And we'll center our way in. Give ourselves about 90 more seconds here, just feeling stack of the vertebrae and smoothing out the interchange of respiration. Last 10 seconds here. If your eyes are closed, we can let them softly blink open. And let's extend our legs out in front of us so that we end up in a staff. Once again, allow or find that vertical spinal column stack. Remember that the knees can bend here. We're going to take ourselves forward into kind of an exploratory forward fold. Just feeling into the posterior chain, what feels like there's limitations, what feels expansive and open. Think about how the cycles of breath can work you deeper and deeper into your fold capacity. Let's just explore this shape for about 30 more seconds here. And as it feels appropriate for you, we'll walk our spine back towards vertical. Let the hands come down behind you, fingertips facing away, and then broaden out through that collarbone space. Lift your chin and let your head fall back. Think about the sternum bowing forward as the collarbones broaden out. And think about how that anterior tissue starts to expand. And then we'll bring our head back to neutral. Bring ourselves back into a staff position. And let's just extend our arms straight out in front of us. Little knee bend here so that you can craft or recruit some abdominal engagement, and then lift your left leg. You can extend that leg or straighten that leg if it suits you, but you can also keep that bent. Depends on how much hip play you want to get in. And then we'll bend the left, land, re-engage that core tissue. Think about elevating, and then the right leg can extend or lift. Good capacity for breath as we activate the core. And then right foot lands, keep the knees bent, and just take yourself forward into a little fold, little modified fold. And then we'll bring ourselves back to a vertical spine and transition to hands and knees tabletop. Let's play with a little spinal articulation. So set your tabletop. Think about that broad space through your handprints, through the fingerprints. Exhale out, round the back, tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone. And then keep the spinal articulation, or the thoracic lumbar spinal articulation, and lift your head. So we're staying in this arch, but lifting our head. And then relax the head. Exhale and drop the belly, lift the tailbone, lift the chin. So we reverse our breath here, using that exhale to sink into the shape, set this base position, and then keep the articulation in the lumbar here, drop the chin. And then we'll release back to neutral. And now really note how the spine integrates. Think about good hand engagement. Curl your toes, lift your seat, and roll your way back into down dog. Maybe sway the tailbone here. Really trying to drive length into this shape. So whatever we need to do to get that space. Remember, the hands are anchored here, so they're not walking back. They're staying anchored. The tailbone is walking back into the depth. And then we'll walk our feet forward and find a fold at the top end of our mat. Inhaling into half lift. Exhaling back into fold. Let the head drop into this fold. Think about what you can do to take your body and just waterfall into that depth. And then imagine you're trying to broaden your hips. So from the depths of our fold, the hips are pushing out. Maybe there's a little medial line energy at that big toe mound to help make that happen. And then roll yourself up from that wide hip base and craft a mountain pose that suits you. Heel toe the feet all the way together as you can comfortably get them. And sink your seat back towards chair. Remember, we want this nice, flat, neutral spine as we drop here. Let the knees just sway a little bit. And then we'll come back to neutral knee alignment, drift our way back up, sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. The head drops completely. Plant your hands, walk to plank, and slowly lower yourself down to your belly. Lift the tops of the feet, anchor the forehead, squeeze the elbows in, and then think about lightening the load in the legs. So the quad flex gets the kneecaps lifted, but then we're coming up so that the tops of the feet are just barely maintaining their contact with the mat. Like if you wanted to, you could sway the feet them scrape across the mat. And then relax, slide your hands underneath your forehead for a little crocodile pose. And just settle there. Just think about relaxing in to that crocodile. And letting your body really relax. As you're relaxed here, belly against the mat, run through a little body scan. Once again, ask yourself, what feels restrictive, what feels open. Ask yourself how the breath is working within you, what is and what isn't full. And we'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And then when it feels appropriate, slide our hands back underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. Reestablish the width and stability of your tabletop. And then from that stability, send your left leg straight back and behind you, flexing out that quad, thinking about that long neutral line from that left shoulder all the way through the left heel. And then release that left knee down so that it mirrors the right. We'll do the same thing to the right side. Right leg extends straight back. We're staying with that length, good core engagement, good neutrality, posterior, anterior neutrality here. Much as is possible. You want that glute to be relatively engaged. Right knee comes down, curl your toes, lift your seat, and roll back into down dog. Craft the depth of your down dog here. Think about how you can expand your spinal column. I think that's probably kind of the black belt level of down dog, right? Everybody's thinking about hamstrings or heels. When you're getting the spine to expand, that's when you've really found down dog. And then let's walk our way forward. Into fold. We'll inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Let the head go. Let the body soften. Let your breath receive. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. We'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae, coming up into this nice solid mountain pose, letting the hands come together at heart center. Feeling the body anchor here, settle here. And then we'll slide the left foot straight back into lunge. As that left foot lands and we establish this vertical and neutral torso, think about width across the collarbone, then extend the arms straight up. Finding crescent. Pay attention to where the weight is sitting in your feet. We want an even dispersal across the toe mounds. So from the medial to the lateral edge, from the big to the pinky toe side. And then ground your left heel and just roll open into warrior two. Big, wide, expansive space. Smooth into that front quad. And then spin your left heel up. We'll reestablish crescent. Ensure that you have that balanced weight dispersal across the toe mounds once again. And then drop your hands to heart center and we'll step to the front of the mat. Glute squeeze, core squeeze, reestablish our mountain. We rebuild the shape each time we cycle through. And then right foot slides straight back. As we land and establish, as we broaden across the collarbone, as we build this neutrality, we'll sweep the arms up, fully express our crescent, make sure that our weight dispersal is balanced and even. And then right heel grounds, and we create our warrior two with collarbone broad, lateral edge of that front thigh, the left thigh peeling open. And then the right heel spins up. We're back in crescent. As we do so, we check the toe mound weight dispersal. We make sure that we are evenly distributed between the toe mounds and heels, and then hands drop. And we'll return to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Get as much height as you can through this finger lift. Think about creating a long straight line, and then exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk to down dog. Get that spinal column length active once again, then come down to hands and knees tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Land here, breathe here, release here. Be at ease. Ensure that your rate of respiration goes back to that homeostasis point. We'll give ourselves 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, fingertips gripping into the mat, we'll pull ourselves forward to tabletop. Curl the toes underneath you and push the weight back, the seat back towards the heels. Then your choice to walk yourself up if you want to get into this vertical spine position. Getting into that plantar fascial tissue and really feeling that weight. But if we're not sitting on the heels, we can still drive energy back, keep that spine neutral. Depends on what feels appropriate for you. And then we'll all eventually make our way to tabletop once again. Keep that toe curl, roll right back into down dog. Now, we should have some extra foot space, right? So transition that foot space into spinal space. Drive the hips up towards that back corner of your room. Think about the weight dispersal across the finger mounds here. Medial lateral edge. Nice and balanced and nice and active. Not all the weight in the heel of the hands, but really using the fingerprints. The finger mounds as our points of emphasis. And then walking ourselves forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your left foot straight back into lunge. Ground your left heel. Bring your right hand to the medial edge, big toe edge of your right foot, and roll your left arm up into a little side angle. We want that nice straight line from wrist to wrist. And we want this nice straight line on that lateral edge, left side. Left hand comes down, left heel spins up. Sweep yourself up in a crescent. Round the left heel and roll to 2. Think about what you can do to peel open that right thigh and sink in. We really open up this medial line. And then left heel spins up. We're back into crescent. Should be pretty wide here. We should have spaced that out. Drive back into that left heel and keep that left quad active. No bend in that left knee. We are fully functioning in that left quad. Hands come down to the mat. And we'll step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Should have some asymmetry here. Should is the wrong word. Could have some asymmetry here. As you reset, think about balancing any asymmetry out. And then the right foot will slide straight back. Right heel grounds. Left hand to medial edge, big toe edge. Right hand reaches up to side angle, looking for that stacked arm to arm, wrist to wrist stack. That long lateral line. Right hand comes down, right heel spins up. We sweep ourselves into crescent. Ground the right heel and roll to 2. Peel open through that left quad. Right heel spins up. We're in this big, long crescent. Drive into the back leg. Energize into that back leg. Keep that space. Still maintain this anterior posterior neutrality. Put the hands down on the mat. Step forward. Into fold. Inhale into half lift. Should have some more symmetry in the body as you settle back into your fold. And then we'll drift our awareness to our sacrum and roll or sweep ourselves to mountain. Letting the eyes close here. Really thinking about how we can be stable and at ease here. And then if you did choose close the eyes, let them reopen. And let's sink our seat back into chair. Driving the hips back, not knees forward, keeping the spine neutral. And then maybe extend the arms and fully express the shape. And then we'll rise back up. Bring the hands back to heart center. Slide the left foot straight back into lunge. Ground the left heel and roll into warrior 2. Slide back into your right hamstring. And we're headed straight down to triangle. Right hand coming to that medial edge. Again, we want the arm stack. We want that long side body. Very similar shape, right, to side angle. We bend the knee and we're in the exact same shape. And then we think about that lateral edge, left side pulling us up and then bending that front knee to warrior 2 and crafting that depth, using that hamstring space to expand warrior 2. Beautiful. Left heel spins up. Crescent. Hands drop to heart center. Now we'll return to the front of the mat. Potential for some asymmetry here. Readjust your shape. Find your way back to neutral. Think about how that neutral alignment can balance you, how the glutes engage, how the spinal column crafts stability, and then right foot slides straight back. Right heel grounds and we roll to 2. Slide back into your left hamstring and we're headed straight down to triangle. Big, wide, expansive shape. Neutral line here. Stacked line from arm to arm. Neutral line here. Right oblique helps pull us up. Then we bend the front knee and we have all this depth for warrior 2. We find and play with that posterior chain space. And the right heel spins up, crescent. Hands drop to heart center. And we return to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, and we'll walk our way back into down dog. Now we have a lot of plantar space. We have a lot of posterior chain space. Get the hips all the way up. Keep those hands anchored as you lift and expand. Now let's come down to hands and knees tabletop. And then take your knees out towards the width of the mat. And with that width, we'll settle back into a wider version of child's pose. Really plays with that abductor musculature. Let that be the case as you settle. So there's this young woman whose father remarries and she ends up with a couple of stepsisters, stepmother. Neither the stepsisters or the stepmother seem to think that highly of her, no matter how much she tries to do, be a part of their lives, better their lives. If she's asked to do something, she always does. And she's asked to do a lot. We'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. Think about how the torso is sitting in the middle of this shape, how the width of this shape changes the open capacity. And when it feels right for you, let's pull ourselves to this wider version of tabletop. Keep the feet and the ankles out at this wider width. So we're at mat width or roughly mat width, and then curl your toes and roll back into this wider version of down dog. As you get into this shape, really pay attention to the big toe mound and the pinky toe mound on both feet. It's really easy to be off kilter because we've changed the geometry of our shape. So really push back into that middle of the foot, or across, I guess, balanced across the foot, and drive that depth into your hips. And then we'll walk ourselves forward into this wider version of forward fold. Inhaling into half lift. Exhaling back into fold. And we'll sweep or roll our way up. Exhaling the hands to heart center. Think about what goes on in the hips here. It's very easy to let the belly go forward when we have this extra width. Really find that trunk lock in. And then we'll slide our left foot back nice and wide into this wider version of lunge. Sweep the arms up, wider version of crescent, and then ground the left heel, wide, kind of off-kilter version of warrior two. And then just imagine, we're just gonna do this at an angle. So the right foot is gonna mirror the left. So we're kind of at an angle on our mat, but we're in a wide stance. Sweep the arms up and overhead, and we'll just take a wide forward fold. Play with that inner edge of the posterior chain so we feel that inside medial edge of the hamstrings. Inhale into half lift. And exhale all the way back into fold. And then we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae, finding our way into this off-kiltered stance. Point your right toes back towards the front of your mat, and we'll blossom out into this asymmetrical version of warrior two. Then the left heel spins up, and we're in this wide version of crescent. Hands drop, and we return to the width of the mat. Once again, make sure we're not leaning forward. We're staying active in the trunk. And then the right foot's going to slide back, mat width, wide crescent, arms reach, right heel grounds, wide version of Warrior Two. Don't let that left knee cave in, stay with the width. And then the left toes turn to mirror the right. We'll sweep the arms up and exhale through fold. Inhale into half lift. And exhale back into fold. Feel that medial edge of the hamstrings once again. And then we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae and unpack this sequence. Left foot turns towards the front. We find this wide two. Right heel spins up. We find this wide crescent. Hands drop. And we find the width of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead. And we'll exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk our way back into a traditional width down dog. Use now the capacity to re-engage, to reintegrate, and drive the spine back. Hold that energy across the fingerprints. Breathe here. Tailbone continues that depth, and then we'll come down to tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into a traditional version of child's pose. Landing, settling, and reconnecting to your breath. So one day this young woman is doing the house tasks. While she's doing them, stepmother and stepsisters are out enjoying the day. There's this knock at the front door. And she runs over, sweeps open the door, but there's no one there. She looks around, she doesn't see anyone. And then she looks down, and there's this very intricate, very beautiful invitation to this ball for the upcoming weekend. And she picks it up, an invitation from the royal family to attend the prince's ball at the castle. And she's so excited. And she's so excited to tell her stepsisters about this event. And so when they come home, she shows them the invitation. One of them snatches it out of her hands. And they kind of huddle around and look at it, and they're elbowing her out so that she's not involved in the conversation. Last 20 seconds here. And then when it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we'll curl the toes, lift the seat, and roll back into down dog. Craft that length. And then we'll walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Get that big L shape. Think about the flat neutral spine, and then exhale back into fold. And then sweep or roll your way up into mountain. Bring the hands together at heart center. and sink the seat back into chair. Flat neutral spine, hips back, not knees forward. And then we'll rise back up. Reestablish the glute engagement. Really think about how that glute engagement helps to lock in the positioning. And then we'll sink our way back into chair. Again. Hips back, not knees forward. Knees, tibia and fibia are really running vertically here. That tibialis musculature is so that we get the toe mount activity, and then rise back up. Engage the glutes, recreate mountain. And one more time, we'll sink back into chair. Good core activity to help maintain the neutral lumbar. We'll rise back up, sweep the arms up and overhead, and exhale through fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk into down dog. This will be the last down dog of class, so allow for the opportunity to explore the full depth. And then we'll come down to hands and knees and extend our legs straight out in front of us. Finding staff once again. Little opportunity to compare and contrast staff from the first time we got here. And then we'll take ourselves into a forward fold, another opportunity to compare and contrast how we are able to impact the posterior chain. Settling in here, remembering that you have the capacity to bend your knees. Nothing is preventing you from doing that. Remember that we want to feel this in the back tissue, that QL musculature that runs along the spinal column is our primary focus here, not the hamstrings. So if the hamstrings are receiving all of the sensation, bend the knees until that sensation is alleviated. And we'll give ourselves just another 30 seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, bringing ourselves back up towards staff, and then slowly lowering yourself onto your back. Heading onto your spine so that you can feel the work in the posterior chain. Knees can be bent, legs can be extended, arms can be at cactus, T, by your sides. But whatever adjustments, shapes you're choosing, make sure they're benefiting you. We'll give ourselves just 20 more seconds just to appreciate and resettle that posterior chain. And then when it feels appropriate for you, let's add a little knee movement here so we can feel into that capacity to rotate, to articulate the spine in the twisting motion. Move with intention. So it's not a directive about speed or depth. That is just a suggestion, a reminder to allow the movement to be impactful for you. Really find those corners of capacity as the knees sway. Let's go one more time in each direction. And then eventually we'll just let the knees fall over towards the right. Settling into a little static twist. And again, find the pause within the shape with intention so that it is the maximum benefit for you at this point in practice. And so the stepsisters and the stepmother kind of get together. They have a conversation without this young woman. And then they all kind of disperse and everybody goes up to their rooms. The stepmother comes into this young woman's room and she has this huge list of things she wants her to do this week. And this young woman is kind of like, she can tell that the stepmother's trying to prevent her from being able to go to this ball. But she takes the list with glee and she starts working on it. She's seen lists like this before. She knows she can get it all done and still have time to get a dress, arrange a ride, and get herself ready. And anyway, she has something to look forward to. So it's an exciting time in the house. This week, the stepsisters are being particularly mean to this young woman. But she's not letting it get to her, at least the best she can. Last 30 seconds here. We'll bring our knees back to neutral. Let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. On Friday morning, this young woman has pretty much completed everything on the list. There's a few things she needs to get done, but she's very confident that she'll be able to get a dress purchased by the end of the day and get ready for the ball on Saturday evening. And so about 11 o'clock in the morning, she gets done with everything on the list, crosses the last thing off. She races downstairs and she's going to run out and go to the dress shop. And she hits the front door. Stepmother screeches at her. "Where do you think you're going?" She says, "I'm going to get a dress for the ball." The stepmother says, "Well, you haven't done the list yet." She says, "Yeah, I have. Everything's done." The stepmother hands her a new list. And all her stepsisters start snickering in the background. Last 30 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral and let both knees fall over to the second side, the left side. So this young woman looks at this list pretty dejected, but she knows if she really works hard, she could get this list done. In time to squeak out to the dress shop Saturday morning, pick something out, and still have time to get ready for the ball. So she doesn't argue, doesn't complain. She's frustrated, and she hears her stepsisters mocking her as she goes back upstairs, but she starts working on the list. She starts cleaning and doing the laundry, doing the dishes. All these things that her stepsisters usually take care of that are now added to her list. And she knows her stepmother is trying to prevent her from being able to attend this. Well, there's no doubt about it now. Last 30 seconds here on the second side. When it feels right for you, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And then just ask yourself if there's anything that you might want, need, or benefit from prior to Shavasana. If there is, let's offer that to ourselves now. If we have everything we need, let's find our way into a shape where we can really appreciate some stillness, something that will be supportive, will be easy, to just be still within. And once we find that shape, let's settle all the way into our version of Shavasana. So this young woman stays up all night. She gets everything done, and she's trying to rush out the door first thing in the morning. Stepmother stops her again and hands her another list. And she just takes the list, turns around, and knows that there's no way she's going to be allowed to go to this ball. And so she goes upstairs and she just starts crying. So this woman is up in her room crying as her stepsisters leave in their chariot for the ball. And she hears them ride off into the distance. And then she hears this woman behind her. She turns around and she's startled and she says, "Who are you?" The woman says, "I'm your fairy godmother." She taps this magic wand, and all of a sudden this young woman's in this beautiful gown. And then she taps her magic wand again, and there's this beautiful chariot out front. And she says, "And you better get going." And the young woman looks down and she doesn't ask questions. She runs out the front door. And the fairy godmother yells out the window, "Make sure you're home by midnight." And she gets in, and this chariot, self-driving chariot, takes her off to the castle. She gets there, Prince sees her and ignores everyone else for the rest of the night. The two of them dance and laugh, dine together. All the other guests leave. It's just the prince and this young woman. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. The young woman's kind of realizing she's the last one left, and she starts gathering up her stuff. And the prince says, "Well, can you stay a little longer?" She looks up at the clock. It's only 9 o'clock. She says, "Yeah, I can stay another hour or two." Moving into your wrists, your ankles, your elbows, your knees. The cleaning crews comes in. They start cleaning the dining room. Moving into your shoulders and your hips. They clean every other table. And these two, the prince and this young woman, are still there. Movement into your neck and your head, your shoulders, your jaw, your eyes, your tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body moves, and we'll utilize that movement to transition into a seat. In the seat, let your spine get tall, your breast get fluid, and your eyes close. And so one of the cleaning crew comes over and sheepishly asks the prince, "Would it be okay if we cleared the table? We don't want to disturb you." The prince is very gracious, man. Says, "Yes, of course. Go home, get ready." And so this woman's cleaning the table, and she's taking all these wine glasses, and she has it on this tray, and the tray gets off balance and it spills. And the wine glasses shatter, and they spill all over this woman's gown. She looks down, and her gown is ruined. She gets up and she shrieks at this cleaning lady. "You did that on purpose. My stepsisters put you up to this. You're a witch. I hate you." And the prince apologizes to the cleaning lady and then excuses himself. And the two never see each other again. With your next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you ensure that the treatment you've experienced in your past never impacts the potential of your future? See how that impacts you. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. Have a beautiful week. I'll be back on Sunday to recharge. Love you. See you soon. Mwah.